On to nationals. The competitive dance team is one of just 12 teams in the nation moving on to the national competition. New hire, the Point Park Athletic Department just brought on a new head coach for the new eSports program. And Ghost of the MLB, our reporters will debate the latest comments by former pro ball player Barry Bonds. It's time to come on down to the Pioneer Sideline. Good evening and welcome to the Pioneer Sideline. I'm Taylor Spirito. The Point Park competitive dance team is officially moving on to nationals, and the rest of their season is right around the corner. To update us, we bring in Kiera Fry. Kiera, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, what should we expect out of the national competition? Like we said, we're one out of 12 teams moving on to nationals. What can we expect?
I think that the dance team will do really well this year. So they've been there before. They're one of only a few teams that have made repeat appearances at nationals, especially since they've gone the past 3 years out of the 4 years that they've been a program. So they're kind of familiar with the way that nationals works, and it's at the same venue as it was last year, which they competed at as well. So I think that they definitely have a bit of comfortability with how it's going to go. They've also seen a lot of the teams that are actually also going to nationals. And I think it also gives them a bit of confidence that they actually won their region this year, because that's never happened before for them.
Which is absolutely incredible. Your total score was 81.71. And we've touched on this before in the past, but now that it's on a bigger scale, how does the scoring in these dance competitions work? Because it is a complicated process.
It absolutely is. A lot of people get confused when they look at our score sheets, but all of the team skills that they do, all of the skills that they do as an entire group have a certain level of difficulty. So they get difficulty points for it being that hard of a skill, but then they also get execution points for how well they actually are able to complete the skill as a group. So that's how those kind of work, and it ends up being out of a total of 100, but there's always a preliminary round and then a finals round, and they average the two scores from those two rounds together to get your final score, which is what determines how you place.
All right. And how do you think that, not only are they going to perform at nationals, like how do you think that their score at nationals is going to compare to the rest of their competition? You said that they're familiar with a lot of the teams that have made nationals this year.
I think that their regional score is a pretty good indicator of how they will do at nationals, because it differs with the judges. It always depends on where they rank the difficulty. There's a little bit of not complete consistency across competitions, but I think that the 81 is a good score to have going into nationals with a regional score like that. So I think that it'll be similar, but I think they'll do really well overall.
So moving ahead, what's next for the dance team following nationals? Your season is still, kicking on, right?
Yeah, so this weekend, the dance team will be at nationals in Davenport, Iowa, but after that, they come back and we'll still be having practices, because the dance team is going to another competition in Las Vegas at the beginning of April, which is really exciting. We've never been to a competition that wasn't an NAIA competition before for the dance team, so that's really exciting, and it's a little bit different from the NAIA, whereas in the NAIA performance, you have all three styles of dance. You do a section of pom, a section of jazz, and a section of hip-hop. But at this competition that we're going to in Las Vegas, you get to pick one category of dance, and your whole routine is that category. So we're taking a pom routine with 12 girls, and then we also have a small group jazz with only 5 girls.
All right, now flipping the switch just a little bit, what's next for the cheer team?
The cheer team season isn't over, even though they didn't qualify for nationals. The cheer team is taking a trip to Myrtle Beach for the Can-Am Nationals, which is a really exciting competition. We went last year. It was a lot of fun, and our coach really liked just the atmosphere and how different it was from the NAIA. So for that competition, they're taking a group routine, but we also have a stunt group that's going to compete in the stunting competition, which is really exciting.
All exciting things. Thank you so much, Kiera, for joining me.
course.
You'll be back later, so we'll see you soon, okay? Now it's time to send things over to our senior mascot correspondent for this week's Mascot Mania. Sarah, what you got for us?
Thank you, Taylor. Hello and welcome to Mascot Mania. I'm Sarah Gibson. It's great to be back, folks. After a long spring break, I'm ready to tell you all about what's happening in the mascot world today. Now, I know I've covered this on my Twitter at SarahAnnDippitus, but I don't think I've been able to cover it here yet. For those of you who don't know, the Philly Fanatic has recently gone under a redesign. I debated covering it at Mascot Mania, but it seems like most Philly fans and most baseball fans didn't even notice the redesign, and that's part of the point. The Fanatic's redesign was largely in part done because of a copyright lawsuit going on between the Phillies and the original designers of the Fanatic, and the redesign was done to avoid paying royalties on the mascot now that the design is different. But because the Phillies don't want their mischievous icon to become too unrecognizable, the changes were incredibly subtle. Changes include the Fanatic being a lighter shade of green, no more fur on the hands, more light blue around the eyes, a purple star outlined around the eyes, and a solid blue tail. But they didn't just give him a makeover, they took him shopping too. Our boy now sports a slick pair of blue socks and red shoes. While many fans haven't really noticed, some fans, like Christopher Jacobs of the Philadelphia Times, say that he's disappointed in the Phillies and the Fanatic for choosing to take the cheap way out of a copyright lawsuit. And today, folks, our mascot of the week is the Fighting Pickle from the University of North Carolina School for the Arts. In 1972, the school hosted a contest to name the football team. You had to submit a name and a sort of slogan. One group of 3 boys sent in 63 bizarre entries, and only one other person in the entire school sent in a suggestion. Lo and behold, the judges chose the Pickles entry with the slogan, "Sling 'em by the warts." Over the course of 20 years, students steered into the sour. Peter the Pickle greets students at orientation. Students grab a delicious bite to eat at the pickle jar and take walks along Pickle Way. Peter has even taken part in some of the students' performance art shows. I love this story, the story of Peter the Pickle, because it's one of those perfect fairy tale stories of what happens when someone makes a joke at a university and everyone just decides to go along with it. I think it's also a great example of the fact that mascots don't have to be the Philly Fanatic or Gritty. Sometimes they can be Peter the Pickle. Back to Taylor at the desk.
Thanks, Sarah. After the break, our reporters will give you the latest from the track. Don't go anywhere.
Alright, so that's all the positions for this show. We can go ahead in the studio and get set up.
Wait, where's Nick and Taylor?
I guess they took Start Your Mornings with Us a little too seriously.
Start your morning with us! Only on Daybreak!
Welcome back. This past week was the national meet for both indoor track and field teams. To give us the results, we bring back Kiera Fry. Kiera, thanks for coming back.
Of course.
So, who went from the track and field teams to nationals?
So for the women's team, the women's distance medley qualified for nationals, and then Alyssa Campbell went for the mile, and Rebo Bartram went for the 800-meter run, and then Xavier Stevens for the men's team. He was the only one that qualified, and he was there for the mile.
All right, so let's start with the women. Let's start with the distance medley relay. How did they do?
The women's distance medley did pretty well. They placed 11th in the preliminary rounds, but they just missed qualifying for the finals by 3 spots, but the time difference was only 8 seconds, so they were really close, but they did put up a good time.
All right, moving on to individuals. Let's start with Reba. How did she do?
Reba did really well. She actually set an indoor personal record for herself at the national competition with a time of 2 minutes, 16 seconds, and .77. And she was just .15 seconds away from qualifying for the finals. She was 9th, and they only take the top 8 from the preliminary round to compete in the finals. So she was so close, and it's so sad that she didn't get to go.
That's such a tough break.
I know.
.15?
Yes.
That's insanity. That's not real. So how did Alyssa do? Last one on the women's.
Alyssa did pretty well. She placed 14th in the NAI for the mile. The mile is a little bit different. They actually take the top 10 instead of the top 8. So she was also close, just 4 spots out. She had a pretty good time, and she was within 3 seconds of the group of people that did qualify to move on to the final round.
All right, so I want to switch it a little bit to Xavier Stevens. We've been talking about him a lot this school year. He's been making a real name of for himself, I should say, as one of Point Park's top track and field athletes. So how did he do at nationals?
Absolutely. Xavier Stevens has had a great career at Point Park, and this year it was no different. He was able to advance to the finals for the mile. He placed 3rd in his heat in preliminary round, but he ended the preliminary round in 6th place overall, which was a good place to be going into the finals. And then in the final round, he placed 10th in the mile overall, which made this his 3rd top 10 nationals finish throughout his career at Point Park, which is just amazing.
Oh yeah, I would go as far as to contest that he's the at the Anna Shields of Point Park men's track and field. He's been doing absolutely incredible things in his time here, like you said.
I would definitely agree, yeah.
So the outdoor season starts on March 21st. What do you think is going to happen with this team going into the outdoor season as opposed to the indoor? It's obviously very different.
It is very different, but I think that their indoor performance and all of the training that they've been doing for the indoor season is really reflective of how the outdoor season is going to kind of start. They have been doing a lot of practicing and conditioning, transitioning from indoor to outdoor, but they've just been so strong on the indoor competitions that I think that's going to carry over into the outdoor season.
All right, thank you very much, Kira. We'll see how they do. The Point Park Athletic Department announced last Thursday that it hired Chris Gall as the varsity eSports head coach and the department's compliance coordinator. Before coming to Point Park, Gall competed in Overwatch tournaments as a member of Allegheny College's club eSports team. After his graduation in 2018, Gall was hired by Northern Virginia Community College to kickstart their eSports program, where he led students in Overwatch, League of Legends, and Rocket League tournaments. In an interview with the athletic department, Gall said, quote, "I plan to grow and develop a full-fledged varsity esports program that will compete at the highest level with other schools from around the nation." Recruiting for the program's introductory fall 2020 semester is open to both prospective and returning students. And when we come back from the break, we'll get the latest from around the region and the country. We'll be back.
All right, so that's all the positions for this show. We can go ahead in the studio and get set up.
Wait, where's Nick and Taylor?
I guess they took Start Your Mornings with Us a little too seriously.
Start your morning with us! Only on Daybreak!
Welcome back. Colton Tobias joins us now with all you need to know from the world of sports around the region. Colton?
Thanks, Taylor. After the Penguins closed out the month of February with a 6-game losing streak, they began March with 2 wins against the Ottawa Senators and the Buffalo Sabres. However, things went south for the team over the weekend as they are now on a 2-game losing streak with back-to-back losses at home against the Washington Capitals and the Carolina Hurricanes. According to the NHL, the Penguins are sitting in 3rd place in the Metropolitan Division with 84 points. The Flyers are in 2nd with 89 points, and the Capitals are in 1st place with 90. The Penguins are back in action tonight in Newark to take on the New Jersey Devils with only 14 regular season games left to play. And not to mention, 12 of those games are against teams that are in the Metropolitan Division. Moving over to the mat, the ACC Wrestling Championships were held at the Peterson Event Center in Oakland this past weekend. Pitt was well represented in the tournament as they finished 2nd to North Carolina State in the team part of the tournament. According to the Tribune Review, Pitt will send 7 of its wrestlers to National, which are the most since 2014. Along with all this success, 3 of Pitt's wrestlers, Mickey Filippi, Jack Wenzel, and Demetrius Thomas, finished first in their separate weight classes. Nationals will take place from March 29th to the 31st in Minnesota. And the preseason for the Steelers will start earlier than expected as they will kick off the 2020-2021 season in Canton, Ohio with the Hall of Fame game against longtime rival the Dallas Cowboys. These 2 teams will also play each other in the regular season in Dallas with a time and date to be announced in the near future. That's all for regional. Back to Taylor at the desk.
Thanks, Colton. On a national scale, the NBA, NHL, MLB, and MLS have implemented a policy that limits press access due to coronavirus fears. In a joint statement, the league said, quote, after consultation with infectious disease and public health experts, and given the issues that can be associated with close contact in pre- and post-game settings, all team locker rooms and clubhouses will be open only to players and essential employees of teams and team facilities until further notice. Media access will be maintained in designated locations outside of the locker room and clubhouse setting. These changes will be effective beginning with tomorrow's games and practices, end quote. So far, no games have been canceled, but the league's joint statement said they will take action should things get worse. Moving on to the NFL, the rumor mill has been fixed on the future of Tom Brady. The 42-year-old quarterback will be a free agent on March 18th, but Brady has stated that he's unsure of what he wants to do. Several teams have been mentioned as possible destinations, but we will continue to follow this developing story. We've made it past the halfway point in the XFL season, and last week's games were filled with action. Saturday's games featured a game-winning field goal by Matt McCrane to seal a 17-14 victory for the New York Guardians over the Los Angeles Wildcats, and the St. Louis Battlehawks getting a convincing 23-16 win over the Seattle Dragons in a game that they never trailed in. Sunday's matchups featured the Houston Roughnecks clinching a 27-20 win over the Dallas Renegades on a late fumble, and the Tampa Bay Vipers, shutting out the DC Defenders 25-0. The league will continue into the second half on Saturday. And finally, on a lighter note, the Trenton Thunder welcomed in a new bat dog, Dash. Over the past week, Dash learned under the team's current bat dog, Rookie. In the upcoming season, this will be the 4th bat dog in team history, a tradition that the team began in 2002. After the break, we'll debate. We'll be right back.
All right, so that's all the positions for this show. We can go ahead in the studio and get set up.
Wait, where's Nick and Taylor?
I guess they took Start Your Mornings with Us a little too seriously.
Welcome back to Sideline. It's time for everyone's favorite segment, Case of the Week. This week, does Barry Bonds deserve to be in the MLB Hall of Fame? To debate, we bring in Colton Tobias and Ray Hazenstab. Now, guys, I just want to get, first and foremost, your opinion. Does he deserve to be in the Hall of Fame?
I think after all this time, he does deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. I know that there was the whole issue of yes, he was part of the big steroid scandal in the, I want to say it was mid-2000s. It was either mid or early 2000s. But at the same time, let's not forget Alex Rodriguez, who was the big face of the biogenesis scandal in the early 2010s, has now gotten a position working with the MLB Network. I believe it's their Fox affiliate too. So if things can change for him, I think it can also change for Bonds.
Colton?
I'm the opposite way. He does not deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, and I have stood by that for years. He took away the integrity of the game by using steroids. I can't stand players who use that because it takes away the integrity of the game, like I just said, for your own advantages. He is not the home run king. A lot of those home runs, those 762, they were because he was. They were because of it. You know, and it's a shame because he could have went to the Hall of Fame even if he did this. There was no reason for him to do it when he was a part of the San Francisco Giants. I stand by it. He does not deserve to be a Hall of Famer.
Let me make a comment though. Bonds, if I'm not mistaken, has admitted yes, he's used it and yes, he regrets doing it. On the other hand, you have a guy like Jose Canseco who's full on like, yeah, this was great. It helped me out. I don't mind, and I think they should do it more. It may not be good, but but as we see with Canseco, it could be worse.
So you're saying it's okay for players to cheat, Ray? Because it seems like that's what you're saying. Because that is not what sports is all about.
Is it okay? No, but if Rodriguez can have his scandal swept under the rug after all this
Ray,
time.
his scandal was not swept under the rug. He was suspended a whole year.
Oh, it is worth saying that although, he has that history, he has, been on the ballot 8 times. He has 2 more chances. He did get his number retired by the Giants.
Yeah.
And he is still a guest instructor in spring training. So he does still have things going for him. It's just the matter of the fact that he hasn't been inducted into the Hall of Fame, which he has gotten as high as a 60.7% vote on the ballot. But you need 75% to get in.
He could have had his opportunity too, Ray, because yes, Rodriguez went to Fox. You were right there, and also Mark McGwire, who was also a big part in the scandal, is now a coach, I believe, with the Padres. So he just chose not to with Bonds. So that doesn't mean anything.
And the other thing is to mention, he's not banned from entering. That's again, Pete Rose, Shoeless Joe Jackson banned.
I do believe Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame because that's different.
I also believe Jackson because it's not clear about if he actually participated from what I know. But with the case of Bonds, he is eligible, but he hasn't gotten in. That's a sign to me. What it says, I don't know.
Now, Colton, I do want to ask, because you brought up a point of, most of his home runs, that all-time home run record with 762. You mentioned that most of those came under him using steroids. But he also is a 14-time All-Star. He's gotten 8 Golden Gloves, 7 MVPs. He has a 1.051 OPS, which is 4th in MLB history behind Babe Ruth, Ted Williams, and Lou Gehrig. Now, do you think that, his steroid use, obviously, do you think that his steroid use more so helps his hitting, or do you think that he used it as an all-around type of deal? Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, I think, Taylor. So let me be clear. I'm not trying to deny he was a great player because he was. He was a great player when he was here in Pittsburgh, and he still was a great player when he went to San Francisco before he used those steroids. I think with steroids, I think it kind of helps more with your hitting, I guess, because it makes you stronger, and as a baseball player, you need to be strong in order to hit the bat. So I kind of think it went more to him maybe wanting to hit more, but it just didn't make any sense because he didn't need it. He still could have got that home run record even without using the steroids, in my opinion.
And how much do you guys think actually went into, his steroids directly resulting into the results that he had? Because I don't believe that all of his stuff went with him taking steroids.
No, it wasn't. But but at the tail end of his career, it did. And look, I don't care if you are Tom Brady and you use steroids for one season. That is still considered cheating, and it just takes away the integrity of the game, like I've been saying, because because I really don't look much fondly on Julian Edelman either, because he was the same way, and it seems like his scandal got pushed under the rug as well, and I didn't like that. And I'm not going to like it with Bonds either.
And if it's just, but the question, to your point, if it was just used for that 1 year at the tail end of his career.
You shouldn't use him at all, Ray. It's not fair to the other players who are really working hard and getting in the weight room and trying to build themselves up without the use of a drug.
But again, going back to what I was going to say, if it was only used for 1 year and the rest of it completely clean, is the record tainted only because of that year, or when you see all this other stuff that wasn't done tainted, does that count for something?
Yes, it does. It takes away the integrity of the game. When you're a player in Major League Baseball, you're still a player. It doesn't matter what year you are. It's not fair to those other players, and even though it didn't have much of an impact with Bonds, because a lot of people forget, he never won a World Series in his time in Major League Baseball. He only appeared in one in 2002 when the Giants lost to the Angels. So it really didn't affect him there, but individually, he's in the name of baseball history as the home run leader with 762, passing Hank Aaron.
Now, he did say whenever he was discussing this a few days ago, he said, quote, "My heart, it's broken. I'm the ghost of the MLB." And like you said, he has implemented his name as one of the greatest players of all time.
I think he still is, though.
Do you think that his claim that he's become the ghost of the MLB, do you think that that's accurate?
Yeah. I think it has, well, I'm not sure if it's completely accurate. It feels like it has become at least somewhat accurate, because you have all these records, as you mentioned, all these accolades, and yet the only thing that's keeping him from getting into the Hall of Fame is this steroid scandal.
Which is why he probably will never get in either, because, and also, I think this is really going to be something for Major League Baseball to think about, knowing that the Astros scandal just came out and knowing that they can't afford more scandals. And I think there's going to be a lot of backlash with players and I think fans alike if people like Bonds and Mark McGwire get into the Hall of Fame, and I don't think they will.
Yeah, and to make a point that you made, I read recently that there was a comment from, I believe it was Bonds, who said that because the Astros got almost slapped on the wrist from the MLB.
They did, and I'm furious about that as well. You're right,
By comparison, him getting to the Hall of Fame looks like his case for that looks better, because again, the MLB was so light on the Astros.
I think of the Astros. I think with this suspension, if he does make it into the Hall of Fame, I think that would be an example that Major League Baseball is really lightening up on their suspensions. And I think Major League Baseball is just going to take the integrity of the game away from themselves.
And obviously the Astros scandal does help out with that argument. But like I said before, he's been on the ballot 8 times and he's fallen just short with those percentages. He needs 75% to get into the Hall of Fame. He has 2 more chances to get on the ballot and get that 75%. Do you think that he could get it in those next 2 times?
I think so, especially with his recent comments saying that he's the ghost in the MLB. People would look at this and most would probably think, yeah, there's all this other stuff, but in comparison, the Astros cheating scandal, which affected the World Series, was worse. And between the comments and this scandal, people are going to probably look at Bonds in a little better light now compared to, say, before the scandal.
As much as I wouldn't like to see him get into the Hall of Fame, you know what, Ray? I think you're right. I think like with this scandal with the Astros, I feel like if they got away lightly, then why shouldn't Bonds get away lightly? I wouldn't like it. As a matter of fact, I would hate it because it would just take away the integrity of Major League Baseball overall.
I do agree with both of your points. I do believe that he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, but I do believe it will be swept under the rug like this whole Astros thing. But that's all we have time for today. Thank you both for joining me. That's all we have time for this week. Be sure to join us next week at the same Pioneer time, the same Pioneer channel, and the same Pioneer Sideline.